Greetings, fellow freethinkers. The event you're about to watch was hosted by the Center for Inquiry, an educational and outreach organization dedicated to defending and promoting science, reason, secularism, and free inquiry in every area of human endeavor. My name is Justin Trottier, and as Executive Director of CFI Canada, I would like to take a moment to tell you a bit about us. CFI Canada currently incorporates CFI Communities for Inquiry in Calgary, Montreal, and Vancouver. Over 30 affiliated student organizations from coast to coast, and of course our headquarters here at the Centre for Inquiry, Ontario. CFI Ontario, located in the heart of downtown Toronto, is the first Canadian branch of CFI, and is the first dedicated event and meeting space for all humanists, skeptics, and freethinkers in the nation. Our mandate encompasses a robust public education series, campus outreach to a growing network of student freethought groups, community outreach and social services, to provide secular and humanist alternatives to religiously monopolized services and activities, and a lending library and media center that, among other things, broadcasts videos like this across the planet. To learn more, please visit us at www.cfiontario.org, to get on our email list, or to learn how you can support our movement, such as by becoming a friend of the Center, a CFI donor, a volunteer, or to launch or affiliate a new campus or local group. Contact us today at ontario@centerforinquiry.net. That's CENTER. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the video. Event. Well, this is going to be a very fascinating, not so much a debate, it's not supposed to be, it's going to be just a very friendly dialogue discussion. We hope to get everybody interested in the topic. We have with us on my left Cheri DiNovo, who is the Member of Provincial Parliament for Parkdale-Highpark, elected in 2006 and then re-elected in the 2007 election. She's been taking on a very diverse set of activities dealing with education, employment, small business issues. She was actually named, I just found this out, the best MPP by the Now magazine fairly recently, so way to go. She's been sponsoring some interesting bills like the living wage bill, which is meant to increase the minimum wage. She has a master's and doctor's degree from the University of Toronto, and what makes her especially interesting as a speaker here is that she's also a minister from the United Church who performed the first legalized same-sex marriage in North America. So again, way to go. Obviously very, very interesting guy. Greg and I, just so you know, we have a bit of history with Cheri. We both presented before her review committee at Queen's Park about a year ago during the review of the prayer, the opening prayer as part of the legislative proceedings. So that is my segue to Greg. Greg Oliver is currently the Vice President of the Canadian Secular Alliance, which is an activist body dealing with church-state separation issues. He's also has a degree in business and currently works as a futures trader. So happy to have both of you on our panel today. To open up, I'm going to ask a leading question, and then each of our panelists will have about 5 to 7 minutes to respond. Then we'll go from there. This is the question. Historically, religious organizations and religious charities have served a crucial role in providing the sorts of services that middle-aged governments were unable to give. But as contemporary governments embrace social security and public education mandates, and with the advent of secular charitable organizations, can we continue to justify the preferential treatment accorded religious organizations? So we'll open with that, and then we'll get into some of the more specifics of that question after. We didn't really flip a coin or anything, but who would like to start us off?
Rock, paper, scissors, 2 out of 3.
Ladies first.
You have a coin?
Let the audience choose.
Okay. Heads or tails? Oh, it says. There we go.
Thanks. Well, first of all, it's a delight to be here. I share all of your values. I'm a Christian, however, but I certainly share the values of inquiry and secularism and separation of church and state, yada yada. And in fact, was raised an atheist and was an agnostic / atheist for most of my life. So consider myself a socialist, and I don't call myself a Marxist anymore, I call myself Marx-ish. But I'm coming out of some of the sort of thought that you've come out of. My family were very involved in England in the Fabian movement, and we're big fans of George Bernard Shaw, blah, blah. So to get to this question, from where I'm looking at, it's difficult to do it in 5 or 7 minutes. It's a huge question, and it covers lots of ground. But let's kick off by saying, first of all, boy, do I wish that contemporary governments embrace social security and public education. I would argue they don't. That's part of the problem. The fact is that we have increasing number of people living in poverty, and the public education system is in a shambles because it's so underfunded. Post-secondary education, we are 10th out of 10 in Canada now in terms of per capita funding. So there's a huge gap there. It's exactly into that gap that groups of, and I'd say faith groups of all sorts, not just theists. I don't consider myself a theist, but I think of, for example, the huge Tibetan Buddhist community that I serve in Parkdale-Highpark, about 4,000 to 5,000. All of these groups step into that gap. How do they step into the gap, and why should they receive charitable status, and why should they receive tax preferential treatment? For one thing, it's cheaper for the government to give them tax preferential treatment, because if they didn't, here's what we would be missing in Toronto. Start there. Out of the cold programs, which have provided shelter for thousands of people. Food banks, they were started in churches, unfortunately. We need them, and they're growing. Community gardens, faith institutions that first started them. Housing. Without faith institutions, and I'm a housing critic for the NDP, without faith institutions, we would have even less housing, substantially less housing. The United Church has put, just as one denomination, millions into it. Others, like the Salian, and a huge number of denominations, Jewish, Islamic, etc., put lots of money into these things. Now, arguably, not all churches and all denominations do, and certainly I would be open as a politician and as a theologian to a discussion around, if a church or a denomination is not fulfilling the mandate that makes them a good buy, if you will, for our tax dollars, then by all means we should be looking at what they're doing. No question about that. I remember we did an audit in my internship church up in Stouffville, and we looked at all the services that our church provided in a small community at that point, bedroom community of Stouffville, including providing free rental space to all sorts of groups. And we figured that the government was getting an extremely good deal for the amount of taxes they saved. Let's leave government-funded religious schooling. That's a whole other question, and maybe we can get into that second round, because, but we don't receive any special government grants, so I was kind of put a question mark next to that one. I wasn't quite sure what that was. So, property tax exemptions, yes. The other thing that you're looking at too, and I'm not sure how many are aesthetes here or into architecture or heritage, but one of the problems, for example, that churches are facing throughout Europe and everywhere else is that if the government doesn't fund them, they don't exist. They will be replaced with condos, and they are being replaced with condos. So the question is, what are you going to do with these gorgeous buildings too? It's a minor question in my head. I'm a social justice person, but it is a question that sometimes communities have to wrestle with. So you've got these institutions. They provide incredibly good bang for the buck. And we'll end there, and we'll go into government-funded religious schooling after.
Thank you. All right. I may not be a religious man, but if I do consider one thing to be sacred, it's our core democratic principles, much like the one articulated in our charter and in other documents around the free world. Among these principles is the idea that all citizens deserve equal rights under the law and in our public institutions, regardless of race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, or sexual orientation. To not recognize equality rights on any of these grounds is to create a two-tiered citizenship, a society where some citizens are relegated to a lesser status despite not having done any harm to anyone else. Now, we are fortunate enough to live in a country where these rights are constitutionally enshrined and are, for the most part, enforced and celebrated. An unfortunately large percentage of our fellow human beings cannot say the same. But we still have plenty of room for improvement. An excellent example of this is the way our government currently subsidizes the advancement of religion through charities. Right now, our country uses a common law test to determine charitable status. There are 4 categories which can qualify an organization: the alleviation of poverty, the advancement of education, the advancement of religion, and other activities deemed beneficial to society by the courts. This test was created in 1891 by the British House of Lords and was primarily influenced by a statute passed in 1601